And so I would consider you a legit basketball teacher, first and foremost. And then outside of that, I think what makes you really unique, man, not as a shooting coach and instructor in the rise of trainers, is how positive you are, that you really do grind, and the humor, man. I'm gonna ask you about this too, because a lot of people get salty, and it's an ugly place out there sometimes as far as how people can act behind a phone. But man, you do a great job of that. So welcome, man. I appreciate your time.
I'm honored to be here, bro. But it's. I feel like this was a long time coming. Us
It
finally
really was.
even getting to just sit down and chop it up, and then us making the connection through Rob too. I
Hmm.
feel like everything was just pieced together the right way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no doubt. So tell me a little bit about your playing background,
Yeah.
okay? Leading up to who you are now, who people know you are now as kind of a shooting instructor and coach and teacher. Talk to me a little bit about your playing background and where you're from.
Yeah, man. So I'm from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. So a small part in central PA. And I went to Philadelphia University. Small. It's a Division II school, but
Okay.
consistently ranked school nationally every year. Right.
Okay.
Really good Division II school. Played for a Hall of Fame coach, Herb McGee. He goes back and forth with Coach K and all-time winningest college coaches of all time. So it's a big program, Division II. Um, and I've never played defense in my life. Uh, I've never even pretended to. But literally got a full scholarship just because I could shoot the ball. Like, crazy story.
Big
This is
time.
for kids, man. Crazy story. I got a scholarship the day after my head coach came to see me play in high school.
Okay.
They like boxed and won. They boxed and won me during this game. So like I think I shot the ball like 4 times, and I thought I blew it. Like I was like, man, this guy just came to see me play. I shot the ball 4 times,
Right.
and he calls me the next day, and he's like, I'd like to offer you a full scholarship. He was like, I saw all I needed to see, and I'm like, I didn't do anything. And he
Right.
said, this is what he said to me, man. He said, your approach before the game and your approach warming up at halftime was all I needed to know in terms of what kind of person and player you were and how you approached the game.
Wow.
And off the strength of that, he was like, that's all I need to see. And then I ended up going to Philly U, started all 4 years, and just basically just sat out there and shot threes all day, man.
Nice, man.
That's
So
it.
let's stay on that attention to detail. That's
Yeah.
big. That's big. I think that's one of the reasons why you have kind of risen in the sea, the saturated sea of basketball training. And today, talk to me about the attention to detail in your approach to coaching or training somebody if you're in person or doing a camp.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the attention to detail that you look for, and then in your own personal
Yeah.
life with your own working out and training.
Yes. I think detail is everything. It's a great word, man. I
Hmm.
probably don't even use that word as much as I should, but like detail is everything. And I kind of put detail and understanding in the same group
Okay.
because it's one thing just to go through the motions of something. It's another thing to go through it and understand the deeper why in terms of why you're doing everything. So my approach to coaching, and you hit the nail on the head even when you say like what I post on Instagram. I want to teach. I want you to really understand what it is you're doing. I'm not just going to throw you out to have you do something and have you like just go through the motions of you not really getting why you're doing it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Like
Right.
I need everything has to have a deeper why. I became better at what I did when I decided, like you said earlier too, we're like committed to learning.
Right.
The more I commit to learning, the more I understand, the better I get at what I do. I can
Right.
pass that on and try to instill that same mindset in kids as well. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because I think personally, if I would have taken, I'm much more detail oriented now than I was as a kid. I was very regimented as a kid, like super
Hmm.
regimented, shot every day, all that stuff. But if I understood things how I understand them now, I
Right.
think my game would have gone to much higher levels. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to now instill that in kids. Hey, understand what you're doing. Don't ask why. If somebody asks you to do something, ask why. That's all. Okay, why do you want me to do it? If they can't explain it to you, then maybe that's not the right person to be working with. You know what I'm saying?
No
Like that's
doubt.
how I kind of approach it.
Yeah, I heard. I can't remember who told me this. It might have been something I read from John Wooden, which I'm a huge John Wooden fan. Read a lot of his books. Is if you explain something or demonstrate or teach something to somebody, and they can't teach it to someone else, then they didn't truly learn it, and you didn't truly teach it as
Yes.
well. You know what I mean? So that's
Yes.
one thing I would say. Let's talk about, because I know a lot of skill trainers or shooting coaches and coaches in general follow both of us.
Right.
So let's address kind of that audience with the skills training game and how it's huge. Because, when I was a kid, there was no such thing as a skills
Yeah.
trainer. You just hoop at the park or your coach or, my
Yeah.
dad
For sure.
shooting with me growing up. So let's talk about what are you seeing that's good and maybe not what's bad or kind of the trends, the positive and negative trends out there. Let's just focus on Instagram since we're on this platform
Yeah.
with skills
I,
training.
I yeah, I think it's interesting, man. I think that you said you hit the nail on the head. People want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
I credit a huge part of the reason I was ever able to start to build something because I took the approach of I want you to learn something out of what I'm posting. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like it wasn't I don't necessarily put things out to get attention for them. Like I try to stay away from that kind of stuff. I like to put it out there as something that like is somebody going to be able to take something away from this? If they
Mm-hmm.
can, and if it goes well and people like it, that's awesome. But it needs to be something that resonates with me in terms of something that I'd want to see as well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think a lot of people now, especially on Instagram, are doing things for the eyeballs, man. Like,
Say it, Mike.
you know what I mean?
Say it, bro.
it there seems to be I tell people there's a difference. There's a difference between teachers and entertainers, and there's a lot of people that are more entertainer oriented. I also think in a weird way it's allowed people that never had a platform or maybe never got the attention playing wise that
Mm-hmm.
now they are getting attention,
Yeah.
and it's like an addiction thing for some people. Like, how do I keep this attention? I'm
Yeah.
not really worried about keeping the attention. I'm worried about teaching. Like, leave. I really don't care, man. Like, this could go away tomorrow. I'm still gonna wake up same time every day. I'm still
Right.
gonna work with who I work with. Like, you know what I mean? It's not about I just want to teach. That's all I want to do. And I feel like we're
Well,
getting away from that with some stuff.
I can tell from one is your comments, your engagement is insane. But even those right now, if I'm scrolling down, they're wanting to know all these detail oriented shooting questions, which I always say, like, can you become the go to guy for that?
Right.
And I think you have slowly established yourself as a go to guy for shooting advice or shooting tips. And I like your evolution of your videos too over time. The original flip it out, sprint, turn around,
Yeah.
cash it out a few shots to now I'm seeing the influence of Rob's teaching.
Right.
I'm seeing the
Right.
influence of your own training, how it's evolved and everything with that. So I'll say this too, man. I'll jump in with this with positive and maybe negative things what I'm seeing. The positive thing is there's guys out there that can be found. The market will decide. If you're a great teacher or you're putting stuff out there that's helping people or you're a great entertainer, whatever it might be,
Right.
they'll decide. Like you'll grow just like your account has blown up over the last year or
Right.
two. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
think the
Right.
negative, kind of jumping on what you were saying, bro, is that what I found in the skills training game, and I'm in a very populated market with that in Louisville, Kentucky. It's a
Sure.
basketball market. Is egos. Like the egos are as big as the players.
Yeah.
In the coaching game too. The older I get, the more I've seen that. And with just me focusing more on hoops for Christ, it would be kind of foolish for me to get in an ego thing for me because my reasoning and my purpose is very similar to
Right.
yours, to teach and inspire and do those things as well.
Right.
So I think 100% with that. So let's talk about influences.
Because
Okay,
that's
we
the
have.
thing, real quick, with you
Go ahead.
though.
Go
That's the
ahead.
thing I noticed. I I have conversations with my wife about this all the time because I'll see certain things and she'll be like, "Well, why do you interact with them a lot?" And I'll say I can tell through even through like a post or how people present things, how genuine they are and how if they have an ego or if they don't have an ego. And that's why, like with you, like Rob and I have talked about it, you can just tell that it's not about you at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like it's a much bigger purpose than just self promotion. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so you put that, you, without maybe you even trying to do that, it's just because of who you are. That's the vibe I already get from everything that you do all the time.
I appreciate that, man. Just the whole thing with pragmatism, for those that aren't familiar with that, is whatever works must be good in the truth. And I've seen that a lot of people have drifted away from what it originally was. If you're a trainer or a coach, like you're here to teach. Like your gift is to teach. And
Right.
we've moved away from like, how can I get engagement? How can I get more comments, more likes, more follows?
Right.
And the
Right.
game becomes that. And I can tell, and I'm not even hating out there, I'm just saying I can tell if most of your caption is rate this move with your favorite emoji.
Yeah.
Right? And I've seen it trickles on down. Like if the top guys with the biggest following do it, then all the guys follow suit.
Everybody does it, man.
Right. So that's why I'm so pumped when I see a guy like you, who's at the top of the game as far as on social media with your teaching, just pumping out content that's legitimately helping players all over the world. You know,
Yeah,
right now, all over the world, people are jumping in. Now, let's talk about our mutual friend, the GOAT, Rob
yeah.
Fedor.
Yes.
Why he even talks to us, bro, I still ain't figured this out. Rob, you're probably not jumping on here, but Rob, I'm going to clip this and send this to you, brother. So Rob is the shooting coach for the Miami Heat. He's authentic. He's stamped on. Rob reached out to me. He's reached out to Mike. Now, Mike, I've been on the phone and talked to Rob all the time, but you've actually been in person,
Yeah.
trained with him, worked with him. So talk about how that relationship came about and what you've learned from Rob.
Yeah, I reached out to him. I saw a drill he did on YouTube from
Oh, he told me this on the phone, bro, like last week. He told me this, yeah.
and I reached out to him, and I was just like, "Hey, this is me. I have never seen anything like this. Like, and I'm the first one to say, like, I know I don't know everything. You know what I mean? Like, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see something completely different, I was just like, hey, man, like, I want to learn more about it. Like, and so I reached out to him, and he just said, hey, I'll be in New York City 2 weeks. If you want to come, come. And my wife and I drove to New York City. We met for lunch, and then since then, man, we talk like every day. And yeah, man, he's just like he's a evil basketball genius.
Yeah.
I if you really dig into it, especially when you're there with him, it's like the first time I had a conversation with him on the way home. I remember I looked at my wife and I was like, I don't know if I know anything.
Rob's approach is so different. It's
Yeah.
so different. And bottom line, though, man, is he gets results.
Man,
Bottom line, he gets results, and I love his approach. And he's so passionate. Like when you get him going, oh, he's gone. You know, he's so passionate about what he does for sure.
Because man, think about it. That's a guy that devoted everything to finding. He went about it like reverse engineering basketball in a way because his whole thing is like how we even start. Like we give a kid a basketball, but the kid doesn't even know how to move their body yet. And so we initially start out with, instead of us being able to control the ball, we're trying to move our body around the ball, and it just sets this footprint for us moving forward that we're trying to constantly catch up, and it kind of hinders the way we're actually able to move.
Okay.
And so, like, he started with that basic concept, reverse engineered everything from shooting to moving, all that kind of stuff. And he did all that. Like, if you think about it, no one's paying attention to it at the time. Like people know more now, but like there was no platform for him to get that stuff. It was just him doing it because he loved doing it. That's the coolest part to me. Like it was never for attention. It was for, this is what I believe, and I'm just going to keep going deeper and deeper into it.
Real talk, man. So just from those influences you're teaching, well, we've got our other influences. So for like, let's say there's a parent on here, a dad, a coach, and they're wanting to work with their kid. So they're wanting to train them, and they're like, you know, what should my approach be? You know, what would your advice be if we're working for a kid who's a beginner, just a beginner level, just learning to shoot? You know, we have no universal ball size of the rim. I think that's one of the big issues. We have no universal rules on how to develop young kids that aren't strong enough yet.
Yeah.
So how would you work with that, or what advice would you give with a coach or a parent?
anytime I work with somebody that's either new, or I would almost put somebody that if I'm trying to reconstruct, right? If I'm trying to reconstruct and break down a shot entirely, I would almost consider them new. They're not new, but I would do the same approach. And I always start taking things completely away from the basket.
Mm-hmm.
I don't start with the basket. I start completely away from it, because whether you're new, whether you're a veteran in it, we're so attached to outcomes of things. We're so attached to, are we making shots right now? If I'm not making shots, I'm missing shots. Now my workout goes down the drain. Is this guy even telling me anything that makes sense? Look, I'm missing shots. Like, why should I trust him? I take beginners away from the hoop entirely, and we're just going to work on things that are just going to get you used to how we need to move and position our body. And from there, once we start to get comfortable there, now we're going to start to transition to the hoop. But I think especially for beginners, we jump into the hoop and everything like that way too fast without ever having any type of foundation. That kind of just, with kids, man, kids are fragile mentally. Like, if you take a kid for the very first time, you say, hey, we're going to go to basketball practice. They never picked up a ball before. And you're like, okay, what's the object of this game? You got to put the ball in the hoop. Now you take them there and you told them what the object is, and they can't put the ball in the hoop.
Right.
Like, mentally, kids are, you know what I mean? Kids are going to be like, I don't know if this is for me. And that's a human being. That's what we do. So I like to take kids away, do things away from the hoop, but that still focus on small successes. And then we can start to build up to going towards the hoop.
No doubt, man. So let's progress forward. Let's get a player who's playing. It could be middle school, high school, college, and
Right.
the importance, especially in today's game, of shooting. Now, I'm of the belief, and I've been more tabbed as the ball handling guy, but I've really tried to focus more on, especially with our mutual partnership with Dr. Dish, on shooting. I'm convinced from middle school up, it's the most valuable skill to have. And you talked about how you got your opportunity as a player. So
Right.
let's talk about that, as far as how someone at that level who's trying to progress up into high school, then into college, or break into pro, the importance of shooting, or your emphasis on that.
Yeah, it's everything. And the biggest emphasis I make now is, and if you follow me, you'll see that I talk about all the time, is just understanding that connection of ball before body, and then getting that ball to continuously move.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the separator comes in. Because if we're able to do that, if we're able to make that connection there in terms of moving the ball first, letting our legs attach when the ball gets kind of up to this point here, you're looking at something that's going to generate power. You're going to be able to shoot consistently on the way up. A big problem with kids is we try to shoot at the peak of our jump rather than shooting on the way up. And a lot of that has to do with the ball actually comes up and stops. And when it stops, we lose all momentum that we really just built up coming through that shot line. So that's my big focus now, is getting kids to really start to make that connection. And it's crazy, man. I work with kids now, 10 years old. And I work college guys, pros. They all can do it. Like, every kid, anybody can do it. And when they finally understand what I'm really talking about in regard to that, things progress so quickly. So quickly. Shooting doesn't have to be hard. I don't think it has to be a hard thing. You know what I mean? I think we
No doubt.
make it harder than it is. But my whole thing is, like, let's simplify it to a point where we can just really start to make some progress fast.
Okay, so jumping on from the player
Yep.
to the skills trainers, this is a question I get a ton of young up-and-coming trainers, which always, I have some kids that I train, and they'll tell me their goal is not to grow up and be a NBA player. They want to grow up and be a skills trainer, which is wild to me. They're like, I want to grow up, feel, and do what you're doing, like training, and this is what you do every day. It seems like a blast, and you're doing it with all your friends. So let's talk about that, and we could talk forever about that. But let me narrow it to how you have used Instagram, or tips, or kind of your journey on how you use Instagram and started posting, and just really how it's grown from there, and your influence has grown as a coach and trainer.
Yeah. Oh, I would say any kid that ever wants to do that too. You have access to so much information. I got really lucky because I played for a coach who's in the Basketball Hall of Fame, is also a professional shooting coach. So I got to see him work in the summertime firsthand, doing shooting clinics, working players individually, and I got to be in the gym for that because I could shoot. So I'd be the one who got to demonstrate for all the kids all the time and stuff like that. So I got to see it all. Like I got lucky there. But on top of that, there's so much information out there, man. Like Google the best shooting coaches in the world. Just Google that. Like Google professional shooting coaches. Find them. This is exactly what I did, man. Find them and then reach out to them in any way that you can. And then somebody's going to give you information. Some people won't. And then take what you want and then move on from it. Go to YouTube. Type in professional shooting coach, look at every video, take what you think works. So in regard to that, all the information's there. It's just about, like, are you willing to dig for it and are you willing to apply it? Like you got to apply it. To me, like I always say, you got to go there to know there. Like if you're just going to, we could talk about theories all day, but unless you actually put it into practice, it's just a theory. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So with that, how do you apply that? And you reaching out to people and what you learn and what you practice
right
in to
a point where we can just really start to make some progress fast.
okay, so jumping on from the player to the skills trainers people or other ones, they want to put out good stuff. Because there's a ton of people out there. I meet new ones all over the world every day. They'll reach out. So, and I'm sure it's the same thing for you. What advice would you give as far as how you use the platforms to reach other people?
I would say make sure that every time you present something, there's still a creative element to it. So present it in a way that you would want to look at it, or somebody else would want to look at it. If you're just putting something out there that doesn't, it's not like we know when something catches the eye. You could still make something catch the eye, but at the same time make it very substantial. You know what I mean? So that's one of the big things. The second thing is make sure there's a learning point in there. Like I said, people love learning. So anytime, like that's why I learned that contrast when you show right versus wrong, but not in like a negative way. You just are able to depict that. People gravitate towards that because it's a lot of times they see themselves in what was happening, and it's like, oh, this is all I have to do to correct it.
Right.
So there's that. And then the last piece, man, be 100% genuinely yourself in how you present it. Because there's a lot of people that are like you said, like if somebody, the top somebody just posts something and then everybody starts doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Not the way you're ever going to stand out. You're only going to stand out by being who you genuinely are and finding a way to just get your message out that way. And the more, like, that's why I think my following that I developed is so cool to me, because it's not like I ever paid for anything. I never paid, you know what I'm saying? Like everything just came to me and I just got to be myself through the entire thing of it. So people feel like they have a connection to me now. And that's the thing, man. Make that connection. Be yourself. People are going to love it. People are loving people themselves. People can tell when they're not. And that's one of the biggest things. So
talk to me about, I've always wanted to ask you about, because you go in on your comments, man. They're pretty funny. I see some trainers, it's almost like clickbait or shock and awe. Like they intentionally seem like they want to engage and argue, which is annoying to me. But, but what I've noticed with you is somebody will slide in and make a little sarcastic comment or just straight hate. You'll agree with them, or you'll laugh at yourself, man.
Sure.
And your humor, like it, because a lot of people are salty about it. They can't, they hold on to those type of comments and stuff. So, Is that just you being yourself, man? Because I find that very unique how you handle yourself
I
in the
mean,
comments.
I'm not. I don't take myself too serious. Like
Yeah.
that's like I don't, and I can't. And then sometimes they're like, as much as we don't want to admit it, sometimes like people are right. Like sometimes people are saying some things that are true, and I'm just like, yeah, you might be right. Like that, you know what? And I don't know, man. It's just I have fun with it. Like nothing's gonna bother me to the point where I'm gonna get super upset about. But I like engaging with people. Like if somebody's like, this is wrong. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
just says this is wrong, and I'll say, hey, I'm willing to hear you out. You tell me why you think it's wrong, and let's have a conversation about it. And
Yeah.
I just I like that. Like I think that's I don't know. I enjoy that stuff, but none of that stuff gets under my skin to the point where it's gonna ruin my day.
Okay. Okay. So let's swing it and let's go a little deeper, right? Let's pull back some layers, go a little deeper with this. Let's talk about more legacy things. Okay. Like what you want to be known as far as let's focus first on as a shooting instructor or coach. Like what's kind of your end goal here, Mike? What would you like this to evolve into? Because I'm not even familiar as far as your routines of how much you train, how much you coach, or what you plan on doing in the future. So tell me a little bit about that. Kind of what's your end goal with this, or what you would like to eventually get to.
Yeah, man. So I do virtual training every day of the week. So I've built that up, which has been awesome. I do all my real trainings on weekends, Saturday, Sunday. I just
Mm-hmm.
fill those mornings and afternoons up because I still work my 9 to 5 job. So
Gotcha.
Monday through Friday, I'm still working. Saturday, Sunday, I just make all basketball. End goal is, obviously I'd like to. I always say I want to be the best. Like I think that I don't. There's something keeps floating me. There's no way I could measure that, right? There's no one going to be ever be like, here's you finally made it. Here's your award. No, I know that's never going to happen, but it's something that for me to strive to every day.
Okay.
And I don't know if you read that Tim Grover book.
I've read everything Tim
Relentless.
Grover. Everything Tim Grover.
So
Everything Tim
relentless,
Grover, bro. Yes.
right? So that book
Man.
hit me in a way that like a lot of books haven't, and I walked away. I haven't read it. I've listened to it like 3 times,
Yeah.
but I've walked away from it, and I was like, I want to be the cleaner of shooting coaches.
There
Like
you go.
I want to be the guy that in 10 years, 5, whatever have you, the timeline, if someone's like really struggling, someone's like, hey man, I need help now. Who do they call to say, hey, we need to get this guy here now?
The
And
end result.
dude, that book struck
There it
such
is.
a piece of me, man. That
It's
like,
like looking into a mirror.
yes, man, yes,
It's like looking into a mirror.
yes, and
If
that's
you are listening to this, go get that book, Tim
go get
Grover,
that book, man.
Relentless.
Yep.
So
Because you
check
made.
this out, man.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying is I did the jump attack program in college.
Yeah.
So my sophomore year, my goal was to be all conference, low NA high school, Asbury University. I felt like I deserved it definitely, but they picked 10 players in the all conference. And it was like right after we lost our last game in the conference tournament, and they decided to announce the team right there on the spot.
Right.
And I sat there and I watched 10 other guys, 5 of which I thought I had for sure outplayed. But man, was that a blessing, because that frustration and anger, feeling like I was looked over.
Yeah.
I did the jump attack program, read everything from Tim Grover. The next year, I was all conference, all American. The next 2 years. And
Awesome.
then on my flight, bro, from where was this? From Singapore to the Philippines, I had about a day and a half before a game. I read the entire book on the flight when I was
Yeah.
overseas playing. Had my career high the next game. True story. Shout out Tim Grover. But it helped unlock, because it's something I
Yeah.
struggle with as a Christian, of like wanting to destroy
Yeah.
and kill the competitive side of you, the dark side,
Yes.
side.
Yes.
And then how to operate on a day-to-day basis
Yeah.
without being that psychotic,
Yes, man.
what Jordan was at all times, pretty
Yeah.
much. You know what I mean? So I knew it, bro. I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. Kindred,
book-
bro. Kindred spirits.
Bro, that book made me like, I feel like we all come at points in times of our lives where we're like, man, is this really? Maybe I'm not getting the exact respect I think I should get, or I'm not moving forward at the rate I think I should, or stuff like that. Like we all think stuff like that, right? Like
Yeah.
I read that and it made me look at myself and be like, hey man, you can work a lot harder. Like you can work a lot harder. Like stop saying this stuff because you this is what you got to do. This is the level you want to get to. And it was like that book came along at the exact time I needed that book to come along, man.
Yeah, man. I remember I was actually talking to Rob about this. He was the one that told me it's a results-based world. And he told me another story. I can't even repeat the story on here. You'll have to ask him about it, about Sean Connery in The Rock. That's all I'm going to say. You'll have to ask him about that story.
Yeah, I haven't heard
but
that
I
one,
was
man.
dying when he told me it, and I sent him the video. I found the video of it later on. But anyway, it's a funny story. All right, so let's talk about legacy of like where would you want to be? Would you want to be in a position where you're doing it full time, or you're kind of like Rob? Or you're going to try to transition into that if you were kind of dream casting out forward?
Yeah, my end goal, man. I want to work for me. Like that's it, man. I want to work. I think that should be a lot of people's goals, to be in complete control of whatever you want. And I don't want to have to depend on anybody else. I want to just depend on me. And I want to travel the world and get in front of as many kids as possible. The trip I took to Brazil recently opened up my eyes to the impact that we can have. And that's what I see myself doing, man. Just working with kids all over and just setting that foundation, setting them on the right track to having them understand. Like I tell every kid, man, you could be the best shooter that ever lived. And I don't like, I say that and I'm like, I'm not joking. I honestly think that anybody can develop that skill. Now you're going to have to work extremely hard to get to that, to get to that level, but it's a skill. Like it's acquirable. It's not, you don't have, not everybody's born, you're not born a shooter. I don't believe in that. Like you ask anybody that could really shoot the ball and if you came up to them and be like, hey man, that's just natural. That's a gift. That guy's going to look at you and be like, hey man, I worked my butt off to get to where I'm at. You know what I mean? So I just want to work for me, travel the world, get in front of as many kids as possible, and then be the cleaner, man. That's how I want to be the cleaner shooting coach.
Yo, you're well on your way, man. And we'll have to chop it up later about that, because not that I have all the answers, but I made that transition into full-time skills training, running leagues, camps, clinics the last almost 5 years now when I finished overseas. And that's a scary transition, man, whenever you're betting on yourself. And, for me, I was actually doing what I call my dream job, playing professionally overseas. And, man, I was miserable because I didn't work for myself. I had another man dictating my happiness.
That's what I mean.
Based on like my playing time. And I'm like, I've worked my whole life to get here. And because of politics or an opinion, whether it's right or wrong, they're literally dictating what I love to do and my happiness. And I'm like, never again. I'm going to let my work ethic. And this is right around that time with the whole thing, being a cleaner and my own personal life of like, look, I'm going to make it happen. And if I fail, I failed betting on me.
Right.
And that's how it's going to be. So now talk to me also, and we'll wrap this up, man. If you got anything for me, let me know. But one thing also I appreciate about you that I feel like we're both about is, your beautiful family, man. How you balance that. For any coaches out there, I'm gonna go ahead and say this. What I think is the number one thing about being a great coach, it's so overlooked, or being a great trainer, is you got to marry a coach's wife. You know what I mean? The schedule is insane. Like it is really. I always tell my wife this. She's the love of my life, but I'm like, my first love was basketball.
Yeah.
But you're the love of my life, and so there's a lot of sacrifices. He goes, tell me how you balance that out with your wife and your beautiful baby. Tell me about all that.
Bro, they're the best, man. And my wife is the most understanding. Like, she's seen me like just go after it, and so we've had many conversations about it in terms of the time commitment and when I have to go, like all that kind of stuff. She's just awesome about it, man. She understands, she sees it, she knows what I'm after. Like, I couldn't ask for a more supportive. She believes in me more than I believe in me. You know what I mean? So like, it makes it so easy for me. And then The time piece, I do everything that I can do while they sleep possible,
Gotcha.
right? So my whole
Is
thing
this where
is,
the 4 a.m. This is the 4 a.m. came from?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's
because
another level, bro. Yeah.
if I wake up at 3:30 in the morning,
Come
I
on,
know
man.
everybody's asleep, and I can get done. I can get done everything I need to get done, and I can still come home. I can still take my daughter to daycare. I can wake up with her, be there with you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
that's what's important. But I mean, my stuff's important too. But I know I can sacrifice a few hours of sleep here and there to get done what I got to get done, just so I can make sure I can still spend the time with them.
No doubt. I mean, my wife is the same way, man. She's in a couple months. We have been married 13 years. As hard as that to
Yeah,
believe, and she's gone
crazy.
everywhere around the world with me. She sacrificed. She's my ride or die. And the same thing. I think she is. She pushes me and believes in me as much as anybody, even more than myself. You know, I actually quit basketball for a couple years. She was the one that got me to come back and try it again in college after I thought I was washed up at 21. I said, I'm done. I'm over the hill. And she's like, no, we got to give this another shot. And, you know, so definitely all credit to her, man.
That's
Well, Mike,
awesome.
anything else? Any closing things? Anything else you got, brother, before I let you go?
I have a question. I mean, I'm just curious because I think it would help, it would benefit.
The love of my life, you know. And
you,
so
you just briefly touched upon it. What did that moment for you look like when you were like, "Hey, man, I'm going all in on this. This is it. This is, bro. This is. I mean, you talked about it real very briefly, but like,
mhm,
I feel like I've thought about it, right?
yeah.
Obviously, but it's like I don't know, man. It's a weird feeling.
Number one, I will say you got the juice. Do it. There will never be a safe time
Right.
to pull the trigger
Or support.
into
Yeah.
full time skills training, uh, running leagues, camps, clinics. The last almost 5 years now, when I finished overseas, and
Yeah.
that's a scary transition, man. Whenever you
So I do everything that I can do while they sleep possible,
got you.
right? So my whole
Is
thing
this where
is,
the 4 a.m. This is the 4 a.m. came from? You know, an ungodly amount of money
yeah,
to come in and train, and they hired. There was a world of trainers because I was working out with them because I was a pro over there,
right,
and they get paid crazy money to be with these teams all season and just work guys out. You know,
right,
you'll see like Phil Handy's with the Lakers. They'll have 4 or 5 guys, but there's a lot of guys overseas that just travel the world, and they'll bring guys in for like 3 4 days or a week from Impact, IMG, you know, the big known ones. So
right,
I'm working out with them, and my teammates, my teammates would say, no joke, they would say, Phil, man, they should have just paid you, bro. Your
yeah,
workouts are just as good. So I got that affirmation from
yeah,
other pros. So I said,
yeah,
man, maybe this would be the coolest thing because I knew I would be a better trainer than I am a player. That was
right,
one. Two was I was working with a missionary overseas, going into the slums, going into seeing legit poverty. When you see legit poverty, Mike, you probably saw that when you were in Brazil. When you see
yeah,
real poverty, it
yeah, man,
humbles you in a way that you can't tell somebody something until you see it. And when I saw
right,
kids with no shoes, holes in their clothes, literally living in shacks, like just a tin metal, and they had so much joy, more joy than I had. They had
yeah,
nothing, and they received what I was saying. And I saw, man,
yeah,
basketball, and just the way they looked at me, I was their NBA player. Like if I saw Jordan or Kobe as a kid, how I would look. That's how they looked
right,
at me, and it just was crazy. And I said, "Wow, man, this is the light that God had given me." You know, if
yeah,
ever I was going to go all in on something, it was this. And then the push, bro, was I started seeing the signs around me. Like, you know, my window started closing as a player. You
yeah,
know, I retired early. I was going to go back overseas, but I actually retired at 29, 30 because this started taking off. And I said, okay, what's the next chapter? Like, what you can hold on to what you have,
right,
you know what I mean? Or you can go all in, bet on yourself, and grind it out. Like you say, like be a cleaner. So I
right,
started from the bottom of the bottom. I flew back from the Philippines, man, in 2015 that summer. had no gyms, no kids, you know. And I'm gonna say this because it really is a testament. The grind was real, but I always say, no matter how hard you work, bro, at the end of the day, there's a factor of grace that comes into play.
Right.
People come around you, God opens doors that weren't open, and in about 4 years, we grew to we have about 500 kids and families in our programs. We got
Wow, man.
about 150 that train with us privately, one-on-one, and we're in Louisville, Lexington, Frankfurt, in Kentucky, and then in Brisbane, Australia. My boy Jeremy Kendall plays in the NBL. He runs it over there, and so we've got about 6 or 7 guys that are full time now. And my
Yeah.
goal was like,
Oh,
can I be full time?
yeah.
But it was always what you're doing right now. That's why I tell you should go all in on it, Mike. I really believe you should. Is because I always said when I step into the gym, one, it's sacred to me. When I step between the four lines, it's like a sanctuary. It's
Yeah,
where I
man.
feel closest to God. It's where I feel home. It's where I feel alive. And then I'm gonna bring value like no one else. I'm gonna offer more value. I'm gonna go the extra mile. I'm gonna get up early. I'm gonna stay up late. I'm gonna
Right.
put in the work on Instagram. I'm
Yeah.
gonna treat this. This the thing is, 2 years ago, I'm gonna treat this like it's my full-time job.
Yeah.
Stories, you know what I'm saying? Post, and it's gonna be solid content. I'm gonna do it all,
Right.
more than
Right.
the next guy, and that was the changing point for me, where it really just took off, you know, for me, and then locking down home base and getting that revenue stream in. But I'm like you, bro. I would do it for free. Like I love it that much, and I did it for free for
Yeah.
months before I ever made
Yeah.
any money. And so that's for me the turning point, is knowing I wanted to work for myself, and I didn't want to let another man or another person dictate my happiness when I knew that God had called me to this.
Yeah, man. That's the ticket right there, man. I love it.
Yeah,
I
bro.
love it. That's a great answer, man. That's a great
Yeah.
answer.
So
I'm gonna be talking to you more about it now too, because I'm there, man. I believe me, I'm there. So
you got it, bro. You got the full package, and the question is just when. Like it's going to
yeah.
happen. I definitely
Right.
believe that for you. And to what degree? You know, for me, you know, I was mentored by Gannon Baker, and I still
Right.
talk to Gannon. You know, Gannon's offered me jobs in China. He's offered me jobs here, and I for me, I just wanted to be home. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to be like a lot of other trainers that are always on the run. So you just figure